Welcome back to another edition of Talking Ball. It's Jack and JD, and we've got some things to talk. We've got some interesting storylines. That's where I'm trying to go with Duke in the NBA, and specifically the guys entering the NBA. JD, and I think this will be fun. We can spend some time here today talking about the starting five from last year and how, where we think they might end up in the NBA draft, what teams might select them. And there's nowhere else to start this episode than Cooper Flag, JD.
Who?
Cooper Flag. Have you heard of him? Ring a bell?
Might have been a guy at Duke last year, something like that name, but that guy's gone.
He is God. He is potentially the next Dallas Maverick, but he is certainly the next number one overall pick. And with that, what will Nico Harrison do? Because I know the reports have come out. They're not trading Cooper Flag. They're not trading number one pick. I get it, but this is also the guy who traded Luka Doncic. And he seems intent on assembling the 2015 NBA All-Star team. So, would it completely shock me if this pick is sent to Phoenix in a package for Kevin Durant? No, not at this point. Nico can't shock me anymore, guys. There's nothing he can do. But JD, what do you say? What do you think?
Um, he's in a win now mentality, in which case, Cooper Flag, it's hard to imagine anyone giving him up. But he's in a win now mentality. So I got three possibilities here. I'm with you on how does he send him to Phoenix for Kevin Durant? But the numbers, this is going to be true for my first possibility and my second possibility, which is the one most people are writing about, which is it's off to Milwaukee for Giannis. And in both cases, I suspect it's a question of how much else would Dallas have to give up in order to make the numbers work. And in a win now mentality, to pair Kevin Durant or Giannis, I think he'll hold on to Anthony Davis, because he's not injured yet that we know of. But if you want to win now, you'll hold on to Anthony Davis. And so Giannis and Davis, Durant and Davis, Kyrie comes back by maybe the end of the year for the playoff run, maybe. Klay Thompson. It's a win now team. Derek Lively, PJ Washington,
Daniel
um, it,
Gafford,
Daniel Gafford. So
Najee
I,
Marshall.
it is absolutely not going to surprise me one bit if he trades him. Although there is a third destination, and that would absolutely rock everyone's socks. And that is he's off to the Lakers for Luka Doncic.
Oh, get out of here. No.
And they give up a lot to bring him back. And then he pairs Luka with Anthony Davis and gives the fans what they wanted.
Well, I want to say this on a somewhat more serious note. I, I don't think I completely agree with your sentiment on this is a win now team. I don't think Cooper Flag is that far off from Kevin Durant right now in his career in terms of win now.
I think he's got just a little bit of NBA seasoning to go, but all right, go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you why I feel that way. The reason is, well, I think Cooper's generational. That's part of it. But it comes down to defense. I think his defense is going to immediately translate to the NBA. It's the offensive side of the game, which I think is going to take some time for Cooper. And right now, Durant he's getting older. That's just it's father time, and his defensive abilities have waned, especially the past year or two. Now, offensively, he's still Kevin Durant, so that's why I said I'm not saying Cooper is a more of a win now player. I just think the conversation's a little bit closer than people might believe. But I think the second one you brought up, if anything were to happen, would be the most realistic. The only thing that gives me I just wonder how they would do it, because Anthony Davis, now obviously he didn't ask for this trade, but Anthony Davis for years has been asking to play at the power forward position next to a center. And if they're going to do that trade, I almost wonder if they're trading Davis in it, and then they're getting more back along with Giannis for Davis and Flag, right? You do some sort of, so the Milwaukee fans feel like, okay, we've got our future, we've got our present. Maybe it's I don't know. You may get a third team involved, but you could have some fun coming up with theories as to what teams could trade for Cooper. I'll throw out a fourth option, which I don't think is realistic, but I'll throw it out there just in case something happens. I don't think this would work out mathematically due to their contracts, but what if the Celtics decided, listen, we're not going to be good next year. What do you guys, would you take Jaylen Brown? Because Tatum is not going to play. We'll take Cooper, let him develop. We'll tank the year. I don't think it would all, quite work together, but Nico Harrison has opened the door for all conspiracies to be on the table.
Absolutely.
All there conspiracies are on the table.
That's why when he got the number 1 draft pick and everyone goes Cooper Flag Mavericks, I go, hold on.
Yep.
There will be 2/3 of the NBA teams putting packages together to try to tempt Dallas to part with Cooper Flag. And it depends on how, is it truly, which I do think it is, a win now mentality. And I'll give you 2 things that I think Cooper Flag still needs to develop, having not missed. I don't think I've missed a single playoff game this year that's at least been broadcasted. One is the physicality of the NBA. And even though he comes at, he was a star above all stars in high school, played well in the scrimmages so that he impressed the NBA players. And then he goes to Duke, where at least I know that people tried to muscle him, but that's not the NBA. And the amount of, there is a foul on every play in the NBA. So I don't know if will he be able to handle that? Absolutely. As you pointed out, he's already 220 and he has incredible speed and agility. I have no doubt that he will grow into the physicality of the NBA. The other thing that I think he has a slight learning curve is the speed of the NBA. It's one of the things the young players talk about all the time, is that they can't believe how fast things happen on the court in the NBA. And although Cooper Flag, we've always said he's ready, like, I've said he's ready like Tatum was ready. It still takes a year or 2 of maturity, of which I don't know that Nico Harrison is going to do that. I think that, this is Dallas. He's got to show that what he did was all about bringing them back to at least the conference finals. So I think he's going to be looking at a couple of dozen offers.
And by the way, I believe it's still possible with the current CBA, but don't forget, Andrew Wiggins was the number 1 overall pick by the Cavs in the summer that they got LeBron, and he was traded a few months later in the package that brought over Kevin Love. So until Cooper Flag plays in a game for the
Or
Dallas
Dallas.
Mavericks, I would still hold my breath if I was a Mavericks fan. So
I was talking to a couple of the Mavericks fan base. They want
who
one
might those
of them
people
would
be?
right. Hey, I have incredible sources into the Maverick fan base. They would be happy to trade Cooper for Luka. There is a brand development in Dallas that has been created around Luka Doncic. And I don't think Nico understood the ramifications of trading him went far beyond the basketball court. It went to the fan base. It went to the identity of the Dallas Mavericks. And he didn't trade for a player that was going to create identity. Could Cooper Flag do that if you're patient? Yes, absolutely. He will be the face of a franchise, or, I know people say he could be the number 2 guy. No. This is going to be the face of a team within, he's 18 years old, within 5 years, 23 years old. He will be the face of that team. That's why I think almost every team that can, 3 years, okay. Every team that can will put an offer in front, and I completely agree with you that until when will ESPN and ABC broadcast the first NBA game with Cooper Flag? Sometime in late October, I guess. We're not going to know.
We're not going to know. One last team I want to throw out there for you, get your last thought on this, and then we move on. The Oklahoma City Thunder, at any point this summer, could decide if they don't win the championship, if they do win the championship, we're going to give you 10 first-round picks. We want Cooper Flag. How do you say no? How do you say no to that? And they're going to be good first-round picks. They're going to be valuable. So,
well, if Nico Harrison is truly in the win now, he'll say no to that.
Well, you could package them for people, for real people, not 12-year-olds.
I don't know, or as 18-year-olds.
Yeah. All right. All right. Before we get on with the rest of the starting five, a couple quick hitters here. So first, if you enjoy the content here at Talking Ball, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. Next, we gotta wish a speedy recovery to our guy, Mr. Jason Tatum, who was the last Duke player. You talked about watching all the playoff games, the last Duke player in the playoffs, and the way he was playing in Game 4 was unbelievable. It was the best I've ever seen him play. Not only was he scoring, he was playmaking, he was defending. He was by far and away the best player on the court and was dueling with Jalen Brunson. And Brunson was having an incredible game himself. And it is really, I was going to say unfortunate, but that doesn't give enough weight to what happened to Tatum. It's sad. It's sad the way that happened. It's not a great word either, but I can't think of the right words here, JD. But in that moment, you really feel for him because he carried his team. He was giving them a chance. Yes, they were down by 7 when that happened, and then it led to 9-point Knicks lead. But he had owned the first 2 games of the series and said, I need to play better. And then he was delivering on that. And so it's a real shame the way that the year ended for him. And hopefully he can come back realistically probably miss this whole upcoming season, and hopefully, since he'll still only be 28 or 29 when he comes back. 28, I think. He should be able to recover from the Achilles better than other players who've had a similar injury but were older. So, wishing Mr. Jason Tatum all the best in his recovery.
The only thing I want to add to that, since you know that I am a Jason Tatum fan, all I needed to know about this injury and how he was taking it was how fast he had the surgery. I mean, I was like thinking, boy, that's bad and everything. And the next thing I know, there are photographs of his whole team surrounding him before the next Knick game because he already had the surgery. It was just, he says, I'm doing it now. What do I have to do to rehabilitate? His attitude's going to be great. He's going, if anyone can come back from this injury in record time, and it's a tough injury. So I think that he is going to have to, he may change the nature of his game a little bit, because the Achilles, you need to push off for the 3-point shot, and it's going to be interesting. I have no doubt that he's going to come back and be an excellent player, but I think he's going to be a different player.
That's fair. All right, JD, who do you want to go to next? Khan or Kaman?
Well, so here's the thing with the two of them. I've been looking over mock drafts because the answer is, I don't know where they're going. I don't. And so one was kind of interesting where it has Kaman going to New Orleans as the number 8 pick. And we know that one of the things that we love about him is that, in a different way, not saying he's Cooper Flag, high ceiling, very high ceiling. And I guess that means number 9 would be Khan Knippel going to the Nets. And that if for some reason New Orleans passes on Malowich, I think he winds up with the Nets, and they've got their starting center for years to go.
Agreed. I think now we're biased.
We are.
We're biased, but I think it's also important to note at times because I like to cover the draft, and so at times sometimes I'm so aware of my bias I swing too far the other way trying to correct. So to give you guys an example of that, in the 2017 draft, after watching Jonathan Isaac from Florida State do really well and give Mr. Tatum some difficulties in college, I thought Isaac had a higher ceiling than Tatum. Now, Isaac has had a ton of injuries, and it's really changed the outcome of his career. But putting that to the side, I was completely wrong. Jason Tatum, far better player.
Wait, I'm going to say that I've been following you and your thoughts about NBA players, and every so often you'll add another one to the All Jack team. So I'm going to say that, especially based on last night, as just painfully Tyrese Halliburton, when people were saying overrated, became the Reggie Miller, and he celebrated a bit too soon because it was only 2 points and not a 3, but nonetheless. And your other one who was fabulous from Detroit,
Cade Cunningham.
I'm just thinking of, so I have learned to respect names that I haven't seen. So maybe occasionally Jonathan Isaac, you get it wrong and isn't as good as you thought, but most of the time your ability to spot these guys, and I years later go back to you and go, wait a minute, isn't he on the All Jack team? And you go, Yeah.
Yeah, and with Isaac, I thought defensively he was far ahead of Tatum, and I thought the offense would come around, and it just never did. But the defense, he's been an all like defense level player in the NBA when healthy. So the reason I bring that up is to say I think both Khan and Kaman are underrated in this year's draft. And
Oh, you think they can go earlier?
I think they not necessarily that they can, but I think they should. Important caveat. Important caveat. I think well, let's start Kaman because I 100% agree with what you said before. That look, he's not Cooper Flag, but in terms of players in this draft with high ceilings, outside of Cooper, I don't know anyone with a higher ceiling than Kaman Malawach. With his age, the amount of time he's played basketball, his intelligence, his feel for the game, like
His footwork.
his footwork, his shooting touch. Everyone gets worked up over the strength, the struggles he's had rebounding, and I get it. Those are legitimate concerns from the season. But I also think you've got to understand what you're looking at. And we're talking about a guy who's 18, who's been playing basketball for 4 or 5 years. And I think, quite honestly, one of the easier things to get better at is to get stronger, especially if you've got a frame like Malawach, not like I don't know, like a Brandon Ingram type frame, right? Like to use a Duke reference, he's not going to be a power lifter anytime soon. But Malawach, he's 250. Like he's going to put on more weight, and he's going to be really difficult to move. And I think the shooting will come along. So, yeah, I think if he goes 8 to New Orleans or 9 to the Nets, it has the potential to be an absolute home run. And Khan, I think for different reasons, I understand people tend to view him as a high floor, low ceiling guy. But I think he's a high floor, mid tier to upper tier ceiling kind of guy. Because, one, we saw him get better as the year went on, which I think is a major plus for prospects. Do you get better as the year goes on? But secondly, this is where, for me, I think there's a lot of untapped potential even with Khan. Not to the same extent as Kaman and Cooper. But when Coop either missed games or was out due to foul trouble or had like a small injury in a game, Khan Knippel, when he was on the court by himself, ratcheted his level of play. And not only that, but you look at the last couple of games of the season for Duke against premier competition in Alabama, albeit maybe not so much defensively, but in Houston, especially Houston, Khan Knippel had great games in both of those matchups against NBA caliber talent. So
he showed up big time in the stretch run.
He did. And so I get it. He's a great shooter. People are questioning his athleticism. But even that, you look at the Arizona game at the beginning of the season, he was getting beat by KJ Lewis a few times. And in that second matchup, yeah, Caleb Love hit some tough shots against him, but Caleb Love hit tough shots against everybody on Duke. So it wasn't a reflection on Khan Knippel. Yeah. So I think both those guys are a little bit underrated. I could see a few different teams picking them. I agree with you, JD. Like I've seen them similar range of the draft, that 7, 8, 9 range. I think the Raptors would love to get Kaman Malawach at pick 9 because he would, Jakob Poeltl, he'd be able to come in as a backup, build up over a couple of years, and then become the starter. I think it's an ideal situation for him. Khan going to Brooklyn is very interesting because it's almost like a blank canvas over there. I don't know who's going to be there in 2 years. So I think he could be a great fit.
What's interesting? There. The Nets have 3, I believe, or 4 first-round picks.
I think it's
they
4.
They could package it and use a couple of them to go for someone higher up and hopefully still hold on to Khan, who I think would be a great pick. But before we jump to the other two Duke guys, I think it's only worth mentioning that you've been watching Cedric Coward's stock rise, and since he didn't play any games for us, but we were hoping he'd come to us, he's probably now earned himself into the late first round.
Yes. Yeah, and when he's drafted, which I think is a given at this point, it won't say Duke up there. It will say Eastern Washington. So he'll be one of the ones that never was for the Blue Devils. Like, it's a weird thing to say, but he measured really well. Like, he measured in at like 6'6", 7'2" wingspan. Just, they said his measurements were similar to Kawhi. So you couple that with committing to Duke, which I think got him on a lot of people's radars. It was kind of like a win-lose moment for the Blue Devils. Like, yeah, we got him, but now all the NBA teams are looking at him more seriously. And it's a fascinating rise for a guy who started at the D3 level, apparently is like a post-up kind of guy, from what I heard, to then transferring up to Eastern Washington, and then he will be Washington State. That's who he will be.
Wazoo.
Yes, and he only played 7 games. He didn't.
Well, cause he had a shoulder injury. I thought this would have given Jose a lot of work, at the shoulder injury issue between
Malik
and Cedric. But all right, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time. It was someone who flirted with us, and that's about it. Really good-looking woman that said, "Hey," or depending on what you like, someone flirting with you, and that was about it. All right, Jack. Tyrese Proctor.
Man, Tyrese Proctor. I think he's gonna go in the second round. And I don't know where, to be honest. I really don't. I think he's gonna go somewhere in the second round. I don't know what team's gonna draft him. So here's what I will say, because I think there's a lot of unknown about where he goes. Here's what I will say. I think we'll talk about Sion next. Sion played in the combine scrimmages. I think it was a very interesting decision by Proctor to not play in those scrimmages. And you'd love to know what the thought process was there, because I understand that could hurt you, but it could also help you. And I don't know. I just don't know where he's going to go. Now, what do we know about Proctor? Well, we watched every Tyrese Proctor game for 3 years, so we know quite a bit about Proctor. We know that he has really improved as a three-point shooter. He's a guy who can shoot him off the catch and off the dribble. And we also know, although some other people apparently don't, that he's an excellent perimeter defender. Excellent. And those two things say to me he has the skills and the transferable abilities to be a 3-and-D guard. I don't think he's a wing because he's 6'5", but he can be a big guard who can guard 1s and 2s. And just like he did this year, playing off of, what would you say, Wingstop, Khan, and Cooper, he can play off of your stars and be a support piece to them, a good NBA role player. It may take him some time to crack the rotation, but I think that's ultimately where Proctor ends up being. A solid role player, knocks down his threes, and plays good defense.
You know how they love to compare, he's like so for me, he's like Jared McCain. And, and Jared, because of injuries, got a chance to really show. And boy, did he come across really well in his rookie season. So do I think a team would be fortunate to pick up Proctor? Absolutely. I wouldn't mind seeing him in, if he's late round, great addition for the Knicks.
Yes.
Love to have his shooting on the Knicks. And that leaves Sion, who will also be late second round, but definitely going to the pros. That body is absolutely going to make some team very happy to have Sion James on their roster.
And I thought Sion, I didn't see many people writing about it. I thought Sion, now, one quick caveat before I say this. The NBA draft combine scrimmages are a little bit tough to watch because they go from showing you the scrimmage to interviewing a player in the middle of the scrimmage and not showing you the scrimmage at all. So you get bits and pieces of these scrimmages from the TV perspective. Now, I thought Sion played really well in the scrimmages. I thought he showcased what he can do off the ball with his three-point shooting when he's set, especially from the corners, but he knocked one down from above the break. And then he did what he's very capable of doing, which is guard multiple people, multiple positions. I think Sion James is a 3-and-D wing because he is bigger. Even though the height is similar, we know that his frame will allow him to guard not just point guards. Some point guards are going to be tough for him with the quickness, but 2s and 3s and 4s, he will be able to guard. He'll be a multi-positional defender. And with Sion, I just picture him like in the old Rockets system with James Harden as the hub, and they would have guys just standing in the corner. And then sometimes they would cut, which Sion can do. But most of the time, they're spot-up shooters. And if somebody helps too much on your star player, he's going to knock it down. And I think Sion has a very clear role. I think he is – all right, let me rephrase this. I don't think he is. I know he's a really intelligent person. And if for whatever reason basketball doesn't work out for him, there's going to be 10 million things he could do. But I think he's going to be successful in basketball and have a pretty successful career as a 3-and-D wing in the NBA.
Would love to have him on the bench right now for the Knicks.
Right now, I think he could give him some minutes in this up and down series with the Pacers. Yeah, I'm with you. And
thank goodness this is not a show about the Knicks. I don't want to bring up last night. You've
only brought it up 3 times, but you don't want to bring it up.
And for my favorite, Stephen A. Even Stephen A. is looking at this and saying, "This is an embarrassment. This is not. How do you recover from this? How do you?" No, that's sorry, not Stephen A. It's not a next show.
No. So one last point on Sion. To me, I think he should be drafted higher in the second round than where he's currently projected because I think he's a guy who can play in the playoffs. And,
he's pro-ready.
He's pro-ready. So, and that guy, from watching his end-of-the-year interview, he said, he had the option to go, to be a professional last year or go to Duke. That's all he was looking at. And he said if he was going to be a pro, why not go to Duke and prove that he could be a pro? And I think that showed with Sion saying, well, if I'm going to the combine, why not go out there and show to everybody that I can compete with these guys? And Sion has the mentality of somebody who I just believe is going to be successful in the NBA. So I would take a flyer on him earlier than later. And I just think if I'm a contender, if I'm a team that plays in the playoffs, I want Sion James. So JD, any closing thoughts here?
No, I think we're good. I think we are good.
All right. Well, until next week, guys. Peace.
Peace.